Hello, Texans, and welcome to the program. Mark Vandermeer and John Harris with you as we rock on 24 hours or so after the schedule gets released. Still talking about it. In fact, tonight, because it's a Thursday evening and we have the General John McClain visiting us, we will go over his schedule prediction, not just what the games were going to be and was he right about the order of events. No, the actual record of the Houston Texans in 2024. And maybe Johnny and I weigh in, although I usually hold on to mine till after training camp when I see who's healthy coming out of camp and that kind of thing. I like to delay it as long as possible.
What a cop out.
I know it's terrible. All right, I'll come up with one tonight because
You
I
can do another one after training camp.
Yeah,
I don't you always say they're 17 and 0?
16 and 1, maybe.
I came up with 10 and 7 the other day when we were talking about this.
Yeah, I actually
10 and 7. I'm on record. I already did it.
I gave.
What are the odds it's going to be 10 and 7 2 years in a row?
0.
Not 0. Look, Vegas would not say 0.
Yeah.
O'Brien was 9 and 7. What, 3 years in a row?
All right, General. Let's talk about that schedule.
What do you think? All right, General, your thoughts when you saw it unveiled, when you saw the order of events, the fixtures, as they say in the soccer world, for 2024.
I thought first thing I always look at is the first game. Then I look the last game. Then I look prime time, nationally televised, AFC South, the bye week. And there's so many interesting games. The schedule is so hard. Last time the Texans had a first-place schedule, they started 0-4, and Bill O'Brien got fired. And this time, though, the attitude with this team is so much better, so much more positive, because when Bill was around, it was so negative. And so I think it's great that they start where they finished last season and won. I think it's very cool that the first game's against Caleb Williams, and it's nationally televised on a Sunday night. The one that really got me is 3 consecutive primetime games. I'm sure that's never happened in franchise history. And 6 nationally televised games, 4 in primetime. The networks love the Texans. I wrote that bandwagon's getting crowded because of all the network and streaming services loading up their equipment to televise and stream the Texans games. I like the fact it's Christmas because that's going to get so much attention. My 2 disappointments, I know the Cowboys Monday night is fine. I wanted Thanksgiving. I think we all talked about that. And the other one, I am really surprised Stephon Diggs playing against the Bills is not going to be a primetime game because it got so much attention all over the NFL when they acquired him.
Yeah, I was surprised with that one, General. That was in my schedule prediction. I thought they would have the Bills on a primetime whatever day. You brought up the 2020 schedule, and the one thing that hit me about that schedule when it came out was, holy smokes, look at the first 4 games. This is the flip of that. This is, oh my gosh, look at the last 4 games. Because I feel like the first part of the schedule is manageable. I mean, look, they're all hard. Let's be honest. It's all hard in the NFL. You have no Boston College Tech University at Suffolk, coming in for a 50-0 cupcake game. You don't have that. But what you do have at the end, after the bye week, home Miami, at Kansas City 4 days later, Baltimore at home on Christmas, and then at Tennessee, which is always an adventure. So it's flipped. So I think they can get off to a good start. But how do you look at that part of it, General, that in 2020 it was so hard at the beginning, yet this one seems very difficult at the end?
They had Boston College Suffolk last year and lost on a field goal at the end of the game. And Carolina was the worst team in the NFL.
Yep.
And, it's amazing looking back at last season. I know we're talking about the schedule, but you think about all the injuries they had, especially in the offensive line and its safety. And, they beat Pittsburgh without Laramie Tunsil. I think Austin Deculus started. So they can't have as many injuries last year. And it's amazing the coaching job they did, the playing job they did, the obstacles they overcame. And a lot of people say, oh, this is a first place schedule and it's harder. And yes, it is, but they're a better team. And what they achieved last year, D'Amico Ryans' first season, overcoming all the obstacles, I think that bodes very well. I think that this is going to be a much more confident team than that one was in 2020. Mentioned more talented, but I think it's really good. You get two rookie quarterbacks, and I hope McCarthy is starting. You get them early while Caleb Williams is learning the offense. Just like last year, Texans start 0-2. You know, they got a new head coach, new play caller, new quarterback, and then they went 10-5. So I think it's great to start against teams that you're favored to beat. They're favored to beat the Colts by 2 or 2.5. I read that this morning. The only two road teams favored the first week are the Texans and the Cowboys at Cleveland by 1. And so I think it's good. You know, they're going to get 3 of those quarterbacks because they get Drake May as well. But I think you want to start fast, even though it's more important what happens in, you know, December and January, November. But I like the schedule. I like the prime time. I wish they had all the primetime games at home instead of split. But it's going to be fun, and it's going to be exciting.
You know, another interesting thing about this one, General, is that this is the earliest the Texans will be done with Indianapolis on the season slate. October 27th is the date against the Colts that wraps up the 2-game season series. The prior earliest finish was November 1 in the 2010 season on a Monday night at Indy. I think that's interesting that the league did it this way, because you would think, and I know they can't do everything, but you would think that the Texans and the Colts would meet late in the season, or at least the Texans and the Jags. The Texans and the Jags meet December 1st. The last 5 weeks of the season, one of them a bye for the Texans, you only have one divisional game for Houston. I was a little surprised about that. What about you?
Definitely surprised about that. And you never know. Maybe that last game will be a primetime game, but can be for the division title. Nobody thought it was going to happen with the Texans last year. Put that TBD up there. Well, why in the world would you put a TBD up with the Colts and the Texans? They were terrible, and then turned out to be the smartest move of the scheduling, because it was prime time and it meant the division. And first time the Texans played on national TV, then they did three weeks in a row, and people saw what this team was all about. But in their effort to try to get division games late, it's kind of, yes, it's surprising, even stunning, that they only got one in that crunch time.
All right, but you mentioned it. You never know. It could be for the division, but you mean for the Texans, not for the Titans, right? You don't project them to do anything this year, do you?
Just like we didn't project the Texans to do anything last year.
Well, better than the Titans this year.
Maybe you said, no, that last game's going to be moved to prime time because it's going to be for the division title. I think you might have said that.
I don't think I said that.
I'm just saying you can't write off the Titans like you couldn't write off the Texans last season.
No, that's true. That's very true. I think that you think about the Titans, you look, if Tavondre Sweat hits, you got to face Tavondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons. That's not going to be easy. You added to the receiver core Calvin Ridley. They just added Tyler Boyd. You know, they've got some pieces. Look, it all comes down to whether Mr. Mayo is going to be a player or not.
And what about running back? I know they have some decent ones, but
yeah, Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard. I mean, they're talking about that. Hey, look, we're looking to replace the, Derrick Henry production. Okay, yeah. I mean, that's gonna be tough, but those two guys they've got some talent. And I remember when Nick sat in here and he was like, we did a lot of work on Tajay Spears. I'm like, dang it, now we got to face him twice a year. So I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility. I think last year people looked at us and went, no. Not even close. I think with the Titans, I could see how things could come together for them on a 4th place schedule.
And we don't know what kind of head coach Brian Callahan's going to be.
Very true.
Very true. He comes from a great family, and his dad's one of the greatest offensive line coaches in history. So much of them is going to be about Will Levis, just like C.J. Stroud last year took the league by storm. I don't think that game's going to come down for the division, but I'm just saying you can't write it off because the Titans should be in last place right now. This division, it may not be great like, say, the AFC North, but it's competitive. And I'm guessing anybody's going to be able to beat anybody. But I did pick the Texans to go 5-1 in the division. What'd they do last year? 4-2?
4-2.
Jacksonville and in Indy.
Mhm.
And I can't wait. I wish the season started tomorrow. And as
Mhm.
far as the schedule, I think the quarterbacks I've never seen, and I admit I haven't studied it, but I haven't seen a team face as many great quarterbacks, potentially great quarterbacks, and then there's who were three who were top 10 picks.
Yeah.
Was McCarthy 10th or 9th?
10th.
10th. Three of the top 10 quarterbacks, and that's going to be fun to watch them. And then not even counting the AFC South quarterbacks with Trevor Lawrence, at some point, he's going to have to be the generational quarterback everybody said he was. He has not been. He wants to get that big contract. And then Anthony Richardson is back and healthy and has learned a lot more from watching last year. And he looked really good running the ball against the Texans. And then, of course, Will Levis, they're trying to find out if he can be the franchise. And they've certainly given him weapons, spent a lot of money on weapons. And when I saw the schedule and I saw that Christmas Day, and I'm thinking, Derrick Henry, for a coach who loves to run the ball, who has a really good offensive line on Christmas Day, what kind of present is that?
Well, that's where I was going with this, General. You mentioned Brian Callahan. We don't know what kind of coach Brian Callahan is going to be. Face them in Week 12 and Week 18. But we do know Andy Reid and John Harbaugh are tremendous, and we face them in 5 days. We face both of them. Continue, if you will, with your thoughts about not only playing that game against the Ravens and Derrick Henry, but having to play the Chiefs at Arrowhead just 4 days prior.
I remember back to 2019, Patrick Mahomes threw 3 touchdown passes, and the Texans beat the Chiefs in regular season. And then, of course, I won't mention the playoff game. Well,
Thank you.
First quarter, Texans got out to that big lead. But the Chiefs last year were 11-6. They were not a dominant team during regular season. They were dominant in the postseason. And so that's going to be tough. And we know that the Ravens are going to want to run the ball. Texans' run defense improved dramatically last season, 32nd to 6th. It was 3rd till they played Jonathan Taylor, and he ran all over them. And that one great game he had that they lost, that they went to 6th. And so with all the additions on defense, 14 free agents, re-signed 4 of theirs, and drafted 5, I'm guessing the run defense is going to be even better.
All right, I've got one for both of you. I am Monty Hall or Wayne Brady or whoever you want me to be on Let's Make a Sports Deal.
Ooh.
I'm going to give you 10-7 right now. You don't know who they beat, who they lost to. 10-7 right now, or do you want what's behind door number 2? General, you go first.
I would take 10-7. I picked them 11-6, but I would take 10-7 considering the schedule is tied for 4th with the Packers for the toughest 5 division champions, 11 teams that had winning records, 7 playoff teams, and a murderer's row of quarterbacks. I'd take it in a heartbeat.
Okay. I saw this the other day, and I think this is interesting because General brought this up. Based on last year's records, the Texans are playing the 4th hardest schedule. Based on Vegas odds for season totals, the Texans are playing the 24th hardest schedule.
What?
Yes. I wish I were wrong about that. So it shows a kind of a dichotomy depending on how you look at it. It is a tough schedule. We all know it's a tough schedule. There's no doubt about that. When I take 10-7, watch this, I'm going to say no. 10-7 would make me right because
Door
that's what I came
2?
up with. I'm taking door number 2, and here's why. I went through the first 13 games, and I'm just looking at each of the 13 games. I'm thinking, I could see them coming out of this 8-5, 9-4. I could see it just looking at that schedule. It's not easy. Don't get me wrong. But as General pointed out, the number of additions that were made, the number of key offensive additions that were made, second years for C.J. Stroud, Tank Dell, and Will Anderson Jr., amongst others. There should be some improvement beyond that. But if you go 8-5, 9-3 through the first 13, okay, you got to split to get to 11-6. And I know it's one game, but I might take my chances. I want to play a playoff game, the divisional round here.
Yes.
I want that. I want a divisional round game here. Even if that means we're the 2 seed, so we got to play wild card weekend, win it, you play just like Detroit did last year. Detroit won a wild card game against the Rams, turned right around the next week and played the Bucs at home in a divisional round playoff game. They won again. Detroit was electric. They ended up going to the NFC Championship game for the first time in 30-something years since Dre played in it. So that's what I want. I don't think 10-7 can get you to that point. So I'm going door number 2.
I sure hope you're right, because I picked them 11-6.
I hope
And
I'm right
so
too,
I'd be
General.
able to brag about it. So, John, you go.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll take the sure thing. By the way, I mentioned the Colts and being done with them early, General. You do open at Indy. So Anthony Richardson, you mentioned him. Would you rather, here's a would you rather have them opening day, or would you rather wait and see if Richardson gets hurt or something like that? What do you think of Richardson opening day? We all saw what he did last time here, week 2. He ran for 2 touchdowns early, and then the game got away from you with Minshew. I know they were trying to come back in that one. But what about that dynamic of the unpredictability of Richardson on opening day? What do you think?
I'd rather have him opening day, because he will. I mean, I can't remember how many games he started last year. He only started 13 at Florida. And so you're still getting.
Played in 4.
Okay.
So he played in 4. He got hurt, I think, in all of them.
He did.
So he hurt the Texans running the ball. I think that, D'Amico's going to be a better head coach because he has a year of experience. Bobby Slowick will be a better offensive coordinator and play caller. And just like Gerard Johnson will be a better quarterback coach because he's coming off his first season as the quarterback coach. So I think the coaching, Chris Strasser, he never coached his own scheme. Now he knows it. So I think the coaching, as good as it was last year, will be better on both sides of the ball. And I think they will have a plan for Anthony Richardson because they will have had the whole off season to prepare for him. And he'll still take off and he's going to run a lot. But I'd rather get him early because you can't count on him being hurt.
Very true. Okay, General, you said 11-6. I have 10-7. This question is for both of you. Mark said 16-1.
No, I did not say. I'm not on the record 16-1.
He did say it.
I want to see it.
He did say it. You can't say C.J. Stroud.
Okay.
You can't say D'Amico Ryans. What one individual is the most important person to get you to those double-digit win records? General, you go first. Cannot pick C.J. Stroud. You could pick anybody else. Oh, no D'Amico Ryans. You can't pick those 2. What person is most responsible for getting to double figures wins?
I've got 2 I'm thinking about. If you can't pick CJ, and I think because he has 3 really good receivers, I don't see one standing out. If I was going to bet on Diggs not catching 100 passes for the 5th year in a row, I'd say no, because Nico's going to catch a lot, Tank Dell's going to catch a lot, and Dalton Schultz is going to catch some. And I want to say Joe Mixon, because he's going to run and they want to run the ball better. They were not good running the ball last year. That offense, you run the ball better. He gets down close to the goal line. He's going to get the ball. He had 12 or 13 touchdowns rushing and receiving last season. But I think I'm going to go with Will Anderson Jr. I think he'll be like J.J. Watt, and that he will explode as a pass rusher in his second season the way Watt did. JJ had 5.5 sacks. Anderson had 7. And with Danielle Hunter on the other side and in 4-man fronts in passing situations, I'm guessing Danico Autry will be at tackle. And so I'm going to say Will Anderson Jr. is going to create havoc for every quarterback the Texans face.
Okay, Mark?
He stole my Mixon pick. I think Mixon.
I didn't pick him. You
Will
can
Anderson.
still have him.
I know.
The options.
But he already went over Mixon. So let me have some fun here. All right. I was going to go with Azeez Al-Shire because I think he's really important to that defense. It's not even necessarily his individual playmaking. It's the effect he has on others. Now, they all have this sort of X factor, or many of them do, I should say. But I'll go one deeper and go with Jimmy Ward, a healthy Jimmy Ward. If Jimmy Ward plays 16 games at a high level, my goodness, this defense is going to be good because – yeah, it's like a lot of sports. You talk about being good up the middle. Well, Jimmy Ward makes you good up the middle, and he is a leader. He has the X factor as well. I think he's going to be hugely important. And as we say all this with Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter on the other side, Al Shire, Christian Harris coming back, Jimmy Ward. Oh my gosh, Derek Stingley Jr. We're not even done. They got a lot of playmakers on defense. As good as we think they could be on offense, man, this D could be good. And they need to be because they're playing so many good quarterbacks.
And Ward's age
Yep.
and the way he plays and all the games he's missed in recent years, I don't see it. If I was taking a DB, I would have taken Derek Stingley Jr. If he plays a full season, they'll tell him what kind of impact he can have.
But he asked who would be more responsible in the final tally, right? I'm not saying
who would be responsible
that
for your double-digit win record.
Yeah, I think I want him to be available. I mean, obviously.
It's funny you say that, Jimmy Ward, because I was thinking Jalen Petrie, because when Petrie in year one, yeah, he missed a lot of tackles, but he was making a number of big plays, and we didn't see those big plays. But my answer is actually going to be Titus Howard.
Oh,
if Titus Howard is fully healthy at right tackle, he's got to play at a high level. And I think that's the biggest key. Titus Howard has to be at right tackle. Look, I think Laramie, we've gotten to a point now where we know what Laramie's going to show up and do every day. The question at left guard, we don't know. We don't know how that's going to be answered. We have a feeling that Titus is going to go back to tackle. Nick Serio said just as much, sitting in this seat right next to me. Titus Howard has to play at an extremely high level. They're going to face some dudes this year off the edge. That's the one thing. You face a lot of good quarterbacks, there's no doubt, but you're also going to face some dudes off the edge. And Titus Howard has to play at a high level like he did in 2022 when he played the entire season and then got a big bag of money. Well, I guess he's going to get it this year, but you get the point. You get the big contract going into last season, and then, kind of stuck at guard because they were trying to fix things on the offensive line, injuries, all that kind of stuff. They try to get the best five out there. Titus Howard at tackle, to me, has to be that guy. If he is, and gives CJ Stroud time to throw with these receivers, forget it. Forget it. I don't even care at that point how they run the ball, and they've got to run it better. I don't even care how they run it, because if he's protecting and Laramie's protecting, forget it. CJ's going to slice up everybody.
General, I was asked about surprises, and I thought it was a mild surprise that the Bears would be on Sunday Night Football with the Texans, or maybe with anybody. It's the Bears. I know they won 7 games last year, projected to win more with Caleb Williams playing well. And again, that has to happen, obviously. He's got a lot of weaponry that they didn't have last year. But were you surprised at all that the Bears would get tabbed for a Sunday nighter? So, well, earlier in the season, the better probably, because the record can be no worse than 0-1. But what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And the reason is you can't count on a rookie quarterback to take you to the playoffs. You just can't. CJ Stroud did it. Nobody was predicting it at the start of the season. Now everybody is talking about how much better the Bears are going to be. They were 7. What'd they win? 7 games last year?
Yep, 7.
And they came on strong at the end of the year, and they still traded, basically gave away Justin Fields. Matt Eberflus is under a lot of pressure, because if he doesn't come through and they don't live up to the high expectations, he's going to get fired, and they're going to bring in an offensive coach to come in there and take over that team. But I'm really thinking, and you pick a rookie quarterback to do. Did Trevor Lawrence, did he do it? And he was a generational quarterback, and they loaded up. But I think Williams got so much attention and so much hype. You talk about pressure, he's going to have it on him. And I think if they're banking on him to get to the playoffs, they're making a big mistake.
Ooh. Yeah, that's going to be tough. General, I know one of the things that you do, which is what I spent Thursday doing, is going and looking at all of these schedule release videos. Which one or which ones captured your attention the most?
Well, I don't get tired of the Titans, the way they go down on Broadway and ask people about the teams, the one with the Texans. Oh, yeah, David Carr plays for them.
Right.
But it's hard to beat the Chargers, because of the Chargers. They've done it, I think, 2 years in a row, maybe 3. But so many of them are creative now. I don't think it's Stephen A. Smith to help you promote beating the Cowboys, because he hates the Cowboys, is very creative. I don't think media should be involved in that. But I still think it's hard to beat the Chargers. But I love what the staffs are doing, because now people look forward to them, kind of like they look forward to the commercials during the Super Bowl.
I will give a plug for one that is the longest, and I thought I would not like it, because it was that long, because that's kind of the world we live in. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers one is absolutely awesome. It's fantastic. I'm not saying if you're a Bucs fan, whatever, but just the way they put it together, what they're able to do, it's really, really cool. So go check out the Bucs one for
And
sure.
check out the Texans.
Of course.
Hydraulic press and the
I love seeing
new
things
employee
smashed.
traveling to every stadium in the country to put the H up there. That was very cool.
Good job, Zach.
Good
And
job.
crushing everybody.
Yep. General, what do you got going on HoustonTexans.com?
I have a column with my schedule predictions, and I'll have another one when OTAs begin Monday. And guys, thank you very much, as always.
All right. Thank you, General.